So, as some of you may or may not know, Maxime Bernier is a French candidate who's running for People's Party of Canada. And he is pretty much very differential from the other choices that we have currently, which is pretty much Trudeau and Scheer, between those two. And let's not act like they're actually different in any single way, because it's pretty much they're the same person. There may be minor changes between them, but the agenda of Canada is very clear. And the stimulation of economy, what runs the economy, it's all set in stone. We all know it's going to be centered around housing and real estate. It's all bullshit. And pretty much, I don't believe that there's going to be any difference if Scheer gets elected. From like gradual changes, like actual significant changes, won't happen or won't occur if Trudeau or obviously Scheer get elected. Now, Maxime Bernier is actually one of the more interesting candidates because he's actually going against like certain trends, right? So one of the trends he's going against is mass immigration. Now, I say the word mass immigration because it's not all immigration, it's mass immigration. And if you look at the news, Canada has been increasing the number of immigrants every single year, and it's going up and up and up. And there's obviously reasons for that. More interests of the rich. It's to do with those, the 1%, because they're the ones that benefit from immigration the most. They're the ones that it stagnates the wages. This is a fact. The higher the immigration numbers, I think, but for every 1% of the population that is added through immigrants, wages are stagnant by 0.4. So what does that mean? More competition, harder to get jobs, companies pay less. Now, this is the real topic, though. The Maxime Bernier, he put out a bunch of advertisements that say no to mass immigration. And these advertisements were actually taken down. They took these advertisements down. And their excuse was that you can have these advertisements because it's pretty much very bad press for us, the company whose job is to basically display people's messages. It's a bad idea to maintain this because it's just bad press for us. We don't want to be associated with this message. So at one point, and people are saying this is okay because it's a business, right? So when a business can decide what's ethical apparently and what's not ethical. It's not their job apparently to display messages of people. It's also their job to pretty much display messages that they only find beneficial towards themselves. There's obviously very strict laws upon what you can display and not display, right? I'm sure there's laws against nudity. You can't display nudity upon billboards. You can't display graphic gore, for example. I'm sure there's laws against that. But there's definitely not a law that says you can't display an ideology as pretty much it's not even offensive at all. Man, there's actually polls that say majority of Canadians are against mass immigration. This is a fact. And by that logic in itself, if the majority of Canadians support this in democracy, then I guess it's good publicity for you because does the majority should support your billboard? But apparently that's not the case. So it's completely bullshit what's happening. And I highly disagree with it because it's a total hit on free speech in Canada, which is already a joke as it is. We have CBC running the show. Everyone listens to that. And CBC is completely funded by liberals, and they are promoting a very specific agenda. Voices are completely silenced on the opposing sides. I don't want to get into all that, but let's go back to this topic. So people argue that because it's a business, it has the right to shut down, right? So at what point is it beneficial for the state, the businesses, the corporations to shut down messages when they don't get them funds involved? There was no numbers released, right? There was nothing released. So at this point, you can say anything. So if let's say there was like some shady deal done in the background or something like that, and the government's like, we don't want these messages, we don't want him as a candidate at all. You have to suppress his voice, period, because maybe Canadians will actually back him up. Believe it or not, that's a scary option for us. So they're like, we don't want him out. So just say that you've been pressured to put them down so we don't have to deal with this. Things like that, right? That's an option that could have happened. Or they could have done it themselves. But even if that's the case, let's drop the conspiracy theory. Let's say they did it themselves and they dropped this message by themselves, right? Why? At what point is that not free speech then? Because at any point in the future, you can come and say you have this message, right? But if it goes against the status quo, the certain corrupt ideology, let's say you have, so I want to actually change telecom companies and actually make a legitimate competition in this country, which we know won't happen because it's all bought off with the government. And the companies are going to obviously not allow that. They're going to just say that it wasn't good. We don't want to do that, right? Or they're going to say this message is not something we want to portray because we have other people funding more, or we don't associate with personal brands or go against other corporations. We only promote personal messages. We don't promote negative messages against corporations. Things like that, like excuses to not say certain things, right? At what point do we draw the line? If it's not illegal, if there's not a law that states it, then it should be able to be broadcast. And when it's not, and the corporations are going to be dictating what and what not to broadcast, that becomes a very controversial idea upon what exactly is democracy and what kind of society do we live in. This really got me rattled, and I think it's completely ridiculous that this happened. I'm wondering what y'all think. If you have some comments on this, and if you want to see more videos like this, I'm going to be dropping them more often. Drop me a comment in the section below, and also sub to the channel. All right, thank you for watching, and peace out.